Hello again, J-Spot peeps, and welcome back to the J-Spot. I'm your host, Mr. J. And for those of you who have subscribed thus far, thank you. I really do appreciate your support. For those of you who are stopping by for the first time, welcome. Share this content with your family and friends. Subscribe, and make sure you hit that notification bell to be notified of content uploads going forward. Today I'm going to finish up the series My Country Used to Be, how change is not always progress. And I'm going to continue to focus on the social service system and how it has impacted, relative to the ideology of the William Lynch Manifesto, the black family and the black community writ large. Let's get right to it, shall we? Now, there are several points that I've been trying to make over the course of this series, mainly how we have been duped into thinking that because we see certain changes in our lives and in our culture based on comparisons to what we were accustomed to decades ago, that change represents progress. But hidden in that so-called progress is a nefarious virus that was planted intentionally by the government to make us, as one would say, watch the birdie and not look at what's really going on. There's an old saying, an adage that says, if you want to hide something from a black man, put it in a book. If you want to hide something from a black woman, give her $1. In other words, for a black man, you don't have to worry about him finding out because he's not going to read. And for a black woman, as long as she's got money, she doesn't really see what's happening. She doesn't care what's going on around her. She won't see what's really happening. It's almost like, akin to the famous quote by Lyndon Johnson, the late President Johnson, where he said, if you can convince the poorest white man that he's better than an N-word, you'll take all his money and he won't even realize it. In other words, he's worse off, he's just as bad off as the black man. But if you can convince him of otherwise, then he'll support you while you're tearing both of them down, he and the black man, because he won't notice what you're doing to him. It's almost like you greased him up before you gave it to him. He won't feel a thing. And again, I go back to what William Lynch said in the manifesto. If you put a man in a pigsty and make him think that that's the most comfortable place that he can be, he won't even notice the smell. And you will never hear any complaints about him being in that pigsty. The only thing you might ever hear from that man or that woman is if they ask you for something to clean it up. And you may not even hear anything from them then. And if you can instill that mindset into them, it will self-generate and self-refuel for hundreds, maybe thousands of years. So during this video, I'm going to read a little bit thing that I wrote, a little narrative, and I'm going to also continue reading from the late Senator Daniel Patrick Moynihan's report, The Negro Family and the Call for National Action. I'm going to be reading chapter 4 of his report titled The Tangle of Pathology, which is really probably the most important part of this report because it hones in on exactly what I'm trying to say. And this was in the 60s. Now, as I say, the social welfare system has had a profound impact on black families. This is my writing. A relationship that is deeply rooted in the historical context of welfare programs. And when these programs were first introduced, they were seen as a lifeline for many families. Now, providing much needed support in times of economic hardship. Now, while that is true, what we have to remember is that these programs were not designed or created for black folks. These programs, these welfare social programs, were designed for and created for white people during the Dust Bowl era, the Dust Bowl, the Great Depression, to help them. It wasn't designed to help us. And they're still not designed to help us. They were designed that we were invited into it as a means to dismantle the family. Just like Willie Lynch told the slave owners to do back in the day. And I'll give you a prime example. I have a friend, a young Italian woman that I've known for about 9 years now. She's in her mid-30s, maybe late 30s, and she has a little girl. And when I met her, the little girl was probably 2 or 3 years old. She's probably 10 or 11 now. And there's not one conversation that I've ever had with this woman, if I haven't seen her in a while, that she's not complaining about the baby's father never paying child support. This is a white guy with his own business and a job on the side. A job and his own business on the side. Every time she complains about him never paying child support since I've known her. Not one time has she ever said that social services forced this man to pay child support. Not one time has she ever said that the court has had him locked up because he hasn't paid child support. Not once. They don't bother him. Now, from a personal standpoint, me, I get stabbed in my heart. I die. I can't work. I get behind on child support. They lock me up. And I can't work. And I have a black female judge tell me to my face that she doesn't care that I got stabbed in my heart and that I cannot work. At the time, I'm getting $1,000 a month in disability. She takes half of that. And that's all the income I had. Not that I wasn't already ruined from not being able to work, just ruined me further. But I digress. But that's my point. So anyway, access to welfare programs for black families has been a contentious issue. Despite the fact that these programs are designed to provide support for those in need, black families have often faced significant barriers in accessing these services. These barriers can range from discriminatory practices within the system to geographical disparities that make it difficult for black families to access service. Negative stereotypes about black families and welfare have persisted, often perpetuated by the media and societal biases. This has created a harmful narrative that can affect the perception and treatment of black families in society, further exacerbating the challenges that we face. The impact of social welfare policies on marriages within the black community, and this is the crux of what I'm talking about. Marriages and relations between black men and black women. The impact of social welfare policies on marriages within the black community is a complex issue. Some argue that certain welfare policies have inadvertently discouraged marriage within the black community. For instance, some programs reduce or eliminate benefits when a household's income arises above a certain level. Now, if there's a man and a woman in the house, then of course, and they're both working, the natural assumption would be presumption would be that the income would be more than what would qualify for welfare benefits. However, if a single parent seeking welfare gets married to an employed individual, the household income may increase, potentially leading to a reduction in benefits. Now think about that. Imagine this is a pigsty instance. You're comfortable being alone. As a black woman, you're comfortable being single, raising your child alone because you have a financial option of receiving benefits. Not that your home is a pigsty, but think about it like this. You're living in that pigsty that Willie Lynch is talking about. You don't want anybody to hear from you. This is why you don't draw attention by asking for things to clean up the pigsty. Because you might open up a can of worms that may get you denied the food that you need to sustain yourself within that pigsty. Now, the negative narrative around black families and welfare can create societal pressures and stress, which can strain relationships and marriages. However, it's important to note that these broad trends do not apply to every individual or every family. The relationship between welfare policies and marriage is influenced by a multitude of factors, including individual circumstances, community support systems, and broader socioeconomic conditions. Now again, this is not a broad brush painting of every individual or every family. But writ large and en masse, we have to acknowledge that something has been eroding and tearing away at the fabric of black families and communities over the decades. If we can go back and we can look, there's empirical evidence that supports the fact that when blacks are together and in a cohesive manner, family-wise and community-wise, we thrive. They didn't go in there and bomb Wall Street, Black Wall Street, because we weren't doing well. They didn't burn down Rosewood because we weren't doing well. They didn't go in there and remove all the black political people in Fayetteville and bomb and firebomb Fayetteville and remove all the black leadership out of Fayetteville because we were, or Wilmington, in Wilmington, because we weren't doing well. They did all of that because we were thriving without them. And in order for someone to have power, they have to have power over something or someone. Their power was being diminished over us. So they figured out, guess what? In order for us to keep that power, just like Willie Lynch knew, we have to destroy the family. And the best way to destroy the family is kind of like there's an ant, I think it's an ant, that mimics certain other ants to infiltrate their colony so he can get in there and eat everything. There's a bird that mimics another bird's call. So when he calls, he gets the other bird to fly away. He goes in there and lays her egg. She lays her eggs in the nest, flies away. The other bird comes in there and incubates their egg. It's the same principle. We have to have a mold. We need a mold. White society figured out we need a mold. Just like Willie Lynch figured out we need a mold. We need someone on the inside to do our dirty work. Who better than the woman, the black woman? And what we'll do, we'll intimidate her with physical violence as she watches her man get beat to death, and will inflict psychological trauma on her. What's the difference today? What's been the difference today of policemen killing black men and social services threatening the woman with removal of her child if she doesn't continue to help emasculate the black man by keeping him down and talking about him like he's a piece of trash? And we'll give you money to do it. And we'll make you think that you're independent and that you're strong. And we'll show you all these things. We'll make you wear wigs that make you look like something you're not. We'll make you look like things that you're not. And we'll reward you for it. Much like they rewarded rappers for putting their hand down their pants and talking about black women like they're dogs. We'll pay you for it. Self-generating and self-refueling. We're holding the knife that's killing us. But because we're getting paid for it, we don't care. You know, in nature, there are trees and plants that cannot thrive and cannot be what they were born to be or planted to be without the assistance of a bird or an insect. There are some trees that produce seeds in pods and pine cones. They're not fulfilling their legacy unless a bird or animal comes by and cracks open that pine cone. There are plants out there that don't fulfilling their legacy unless a bee or a butterfly or a hummingbird comes along. It needs something else. And when that animal approaches that tree doesn't say, well, you know, you are an animal, but you're not big enough. You don't look right. You don't have this. Your fur is not dark enough. You're not fat enough. I can't let you have my combs. You can't be a part of my legacy or I'm too. I don't really need you. I can just let my seed fall to the ground. When an insect or a bumblebee or a hummingbird or a butterfly approaches a plant, the plant doesn't say, well, hey, you don't look like what I want. I don't want to have nothing to do with you. Nature requires that we live in harmony. Nature requires that in order for us to perpetuate and produce and procreate, that we do so in harmony. If we want to thrive, we have to be on the same page. But white society has figured out a way to keep us from doing that. Same thing Willie Lynch said in his manifesto. If you mix your white blood with the black blood, some people will come out with fine hair, some will have thin lips, and some will have thin noses. And guess what? They will hate the people that don't look like them. We fell for the trap. We fell for it. Even this morning, I'm watching YouTube, pops up. Oh, this guy's talking to this woman. And he's basically saying the same thing I'm talking about. She's a young brother, too. And he's talking about Willie Lynch. And he's telling this woman she will not listen to what he has to say. Because he said something, another woman, the host, asked the young brother about the independence of black women. And he was like, yeah, it's destroying the black community. And this other woman got all up and on. Was something wrong with me being independent and making my own money? No, there's nothing wrong with that. It's just that you think that's normal. It's not. It's not the normal way it's not the way things go. It's not the way that the black community writ large thrives. Of course, there are going to be examples where people do. It's not going to work for everybody. That's true. But the thing about it is, you have to understand, while you're boss chick this and boss chick that and independent this and independent that, nothing about you is real. You're sitting there with a wig on that we know is not your hair. Nothing wrong wearing a wig, but you know what I'm saying? You always demanding all these things from a black man that you can't even be. You want him to look a certain way and be a certain way and make a certain amount of money. You don't even want to be who you really are. Because everything you got on this morning while you talking to me and all dressed up, you won't have on when we go to bed. You won't have on when we wake up. So who's being duped here? Who's being real and who isn't? Who's actually settling? And it's not a judgment, it's observation. But nature requires that we live in harmony. Nature requires that we don't judge what we need based on what it looks like. We don't deny what we need based on what we think it should look like. It's just like I tell clients, and I'm not trying to be religious about this, and I hope I don't offend anyone. But I'll ask a client, why do you think Christ was crucified by the Israelites? I'll get several different answers. Because he didn't look like what they thought he should look like when he showed up. They were expecting somebody to come in on a white horse with swords out of his mouth and, just slaying and killing the Romans. But a carpenter's son showed up. And because he claimed to be what he really was, because he didn't look like it, they called him a blasphemer and a liar and a devil and a witch and a sorcerer. So they had him killed. Same thing, I'd ask a client, when you were out on the street and you were living under that bridge and you were throwing up and you were sick and cold and starving, and you got on your knees and you asked your higher power to save you, 20 minutes later you get arrested. You just got what you prayed for, but because it didn't show up like you thought it was going to show up, or you thought it should show up in your head, you cursed it. You didn't see it for what it really was. And it's the same thing here. A lot of people asking God, give me a Boaz, give me this. Okay, he sends him to you, and because he doesn't meet your checklist, you curse it. And as I said, a woman asked me several weeks ago why I was single, why I'm single. I said, I'm single for the same reason you're single. She didn't understand it. She said, what do you mean? I said, I'm single because you won't date me. I like you, but you don't want me because I'm not tall. And then she said, why do black men date white women? I said, because you ain't dating them. Because you're not dating black men. And she got mad and hung up on me. But that's my point. That's my point. And so now I'll continue with Senator Daniel Patrick Moynihan's report, The Negro Family and the Call for National Action. Now remember, this report was submitted in 1965. This is chapter 4, The Tangle of Pathology. Now I want you to listen carefully to what this man says and relate it to what you see with your own two eyes and what you hear with your own two ears. The Tangle of Pathology, quote, that the Negro family, that the Negro American has survived at all is extraordinary. A lesser people might simply have died out, as indeed others have. That the Negro community has not only survived, but in this political generation, remember 1965, has entered national affairs as a moderate, humane, and constructive national force is the highest testament to the healing powers of the democratic ideal and the creative vitality of the Negro people. Unquote. Do you hear what he just said? This is a man who was born probably in 1890s, late 1890s, probably. This is a privileged white man, senator from New York, United States Senator from New York, who has witnessed and lived through some of the most heinous atrocities inflicted upon the black community in America. He's seen it. And you know what he says? That the Negro American has survived at all is extraordinary. And that a lesser people, like others have, would have simply died out under these conditions. But we, black people, we survived that. Which makes it all the more perplexing that we have come, all that we have come through as a people to be where we are today, having black women emasculate black men, and our communities to be so decimated as a result of social services infiltrating our communities and our families and hiding what's really going on by flashing a dollar in front of some people, in front of black women. Not that black men don't bear some responsibility, I'm not talking about that, but we'll go on. In essence, the Negro community, I'll continue with Moynihan's quote, in essence, the Negro community has been forced into a matriarchal structure which, because it is too out of line with the rest of the American society, seriously retards the progress of the group as a whole and imposes a crushing burden on the Negro male and in consequence on a great many Negro women as well. What he just said that the black community, this is in 65, has been forced into a structure where women are the heads of families. And as a result, because this is out of line with the rest of the American society, seriously hinders the progress of black people as a whole and imposes a crushing burden on the Negro male, and in some ways on Negro women also. Everything was flipped on its head. And when you compare it to white society in America, it's out of line. Because in white society in America in the 60s, as is the case now mostly, white men are in power. They are the head of everything, as it should be according to family structure. In the 60s, you didn't hear about white women heading households. The matriarchal pattern of so many Negro families reinforces itself over the generations. Ooh, he just said the same thing Willie Lynch said. It will self-generate and self-refuel over generations. The matriarchal pattern of so many Negro families reinforces itself over the generations. And it comes, and every generation, as it says, there's an adage that says every generation is weaker and wiser. Meaning, they learn younger, but they're weaker. They're wiser as they're younger, but it ultimately renders them weaker because they can't handle things. And they're immature with the information. They don't know how to handle it, and it ends up ruining them. So think about it like this. If a woman is head of the household and she has become so comfortable in that position and she has a daughter, what do you think she's telling her daughter? You don't need a man. What do you think she's teaching her daughter? And if her daughter's learning that at a younger age, she's wiser about what she believes she knows, but because she's so young, she can't handle the information and it ends up being abused. And you end up with women on TikTok and on Facebook and on these reels standing in front of a camera shaking their ass when they're 15, 16 years old in their bedrooms and telling each other, you don't need a man, and he better come with this, and he better have this, and he better have that. Off topic, and well, I'll digress a little bit. When I was growing up in the South, it was a given that black women did better in school than black men. Same thing. It's the same thing in any culture. Most women do better in school. But I never saw a black woman or heard a black woman say, because she was smart, that she didn't need a black man. I never saw a black woman who went to college come back and say, I'm not marrying you because you're not 6 feet tall. She would marry a man who's a farmer. She would marry a man who's a carpenter. It was about legacy. It was about community. It was about building together. Maybe the carpenter didn't make as much money as she did, but that didn't stop her from marrying him. It wasn't about what he brought to the table. It's about the table you could build together. It was about the table you could build together. And the effect on family, functioning, and role performance of this historical experience is what you might predict. Both as a husband and as a father, the Negro male is made to feel inadequate. Not because he is unlovable or unaffectionate or lacks intelligence or even lacks intelligence or even a gray flannel suit. But in a society that measures a man by the size of his paycheck, he doesn't stand very tall in comparison with his white counterpart. Remember, this was in 1965. And I'll say that again. But both as a husband and a father, the Negro male is made to feel inadequate. Think about that in the context of what we're talking about today. A man feels inadequate when you tell him you're not going to date him because he's not 6 feet tall. A man is made to feel inadequate because you tell him he doesn't have anything to offer you because he doesn't make $100,000 a year. You're emasculating that man. And it's not because he's not lovable or unaffectionate or lacks intelligence or even a gray flannel suit. It's because you, black woman, have decided, based on what social services and the images that you grew up have told you, that this is the type of man you gotta have. You gotta have a Barbie doll man. If he doesn't look like Ken, not exactly like Ken, but you know what I'm saying. You got a Barbie doll complex in your head about what a man is supposed to look like. Not what he's supposed to be, but what he's supposed to look like. Like my friend told me, I asked her, the same one I was talking to about why I'm single. I asked her about why are you so insistent that the man has to be 6 feet tall? And I kept after her and finally she said, it's the optics. The optics? Really? So it's not about what you need, it's about what you want to be seen as. And who are you trying to impress with that mindset, men or women? She got mad. And I'll continue. To this situation, the black man, the black man, may react with withdrawal, bitterness towards society, aggression both within the family and racial group, self-hatred, or crime. Or he may escape through a number of avenues that help him to lose himself in fantasy or to compensate for his low status through a variety of exploits. Thomas Pettigrew wrote, unquote, and Thomas Pettigrew wrote, quote, "The Negro wife in this situation can easily become disgusted with her financially dependent husband." Why is he financially dependent? Why? Because you kicked him, because your society won't let him thrive, and you're helping. And her rejection of him further alienates the male from family life. What black man in his right mind wants to date a woman who's constantly talking about him like a dog? And who threatens with any time they have an argument to leave him and take half of his assets? Or report him to the police for things that he hasn't done? Or will sit around and tolerate disrespect, to have you talk about him in front of him and call him names? Sometimes you haven't even earned the right to do that, but you do it because you think you can, because you're an independent boss chick. Embittered by their experiences with men, many Negro mothers often act to perpetuate the mother-centered pattern by taking a greater interest in their daughters than they do their sons, unquote. Denton Brooks wrote, in a matriarchal structure, quote, in a matriarchal structure, the women are transmitting the culture, unquote. Basically what he's saying is what I said earlier, and what Willie Lynch said. You are perpetuating, self-generating, and self-refueling your ideology onto your offspring. Black women are transmitting the culture. And if you're being attacked in your house and you have no way to defend it, or no one there who is stronger than you to defend it, your house is gonna get burned down. There's a virus in our community, and it's spreading. Dorothy Height said, quote, "If the Negro woman has a major underlying concern, it is the status of the Negro man and his position in the community, and his need for feeling himself as an important person, free and able to make his contribution in the whole society in order that he may strengthen his home." That he may strengthen his home. He wants to contribute. Hear me again, women, black women. Black men want to contribute, and they want to contribute with you, but they can't contribute with someone who is competing with them. Our roles, we're in the wrong lanes. And when you cross over into a lane that you're not supposed to be in, you cause head-on collisions. And nobody escapes a head-on collision unscathed. There's going to be some damage there somewhere. I'll read that quote again, Dorothy Height. If the Negro woman has a major underlying concern, it is the status of the Negro man and his position in the community, and his need for feeling himself as an important person, free and able to make his contribution in the whole society in order that he may strengthen his home. But if he's not in the home, he can't strengthen it. And if it's not strong, it will fall. And social services knows that. Society knows that. That's why the American economic system targets you, black women, more than they target men. Black men. Because they're making you think you're something that you're not when there's nothing wrong with you. You're trying to dodge bullets that you never were even threatened by. You're making us look, black men, look like we're the enemy when we've never been your enemy. You're the plant, you're the tree that needs us. But you're rejecting us because we don't look like the bird that you want, even though we're the bird that you need. You're rejecting us because we don't look like the insect that you want, even though we're the insect that you need. And in the meantime, what offspring you do bear is falling to the ground, rotting. So ask yourself, ladies, what are you doing to uplift your black men? Why are you sitting around podcasting tables and on couches in your girlfriend's home, drinking wine and talking down about black men? Why are you letting your sister tell you what you need? Why are you letting your girlfriend, who's been single for 20 years, giving you advice and she don't even have a man? Who's holding the knife? Thank you once again, J-Spot peeps, for spending some of your valuable time here with me in the J-Spot. And I hope you enjoyed this series, and I hope it was edifying to you and shed some light on what's really going on in the black community. Make sure, if you enjoyed this content, that you like, subscribe, share, drop a comment, and make sure you come back to see me, because we have a lot more discovering to do and a lot more purpose to pursue. In the meantime, peace.